Welcome to The Stacks, a podcast about books and the people who read them. I'm your host, Tracy Thomas, and today we are joined by pop culture and reality TV podcaster Danny Pellegrino, who is the host of Everything Iconic with Danny Pellegrino. Danny just released his book, a memoir and essays called How Do I Unremember This? Unfortunately True Stories. It was an instant New York Times bestseller, and the book covers Danny's coming of age as a closeted gay kid growing up in small town Ohio and the many embarrassing stories he collected over the years. We talk today about pop culture, Danny's lifelong love of books, and the importance of queer stories. Don't forget the Stacks Book Club pick for April is Doppelgangbanger by Courtney Lamar Charleston. We will be discussing the book on Wednesday, April 27th with Nate Marshall. Quick reminder, everything we talk about on every single episode of The Stacks can be found in the link in the show notes. It will have a link for every person, book, article, essay, TV show, and whatever else we mention on the episode. So please click that link in the show notes whenever you're wondering about what we're talking about. If you love the show and want more of it, join the Stacks Pack. That's our exclusive community for all you book lovers out there. We have an awesome Discord community, monthly virtual book club conversations, bonus episodes, plus you get discounts on merch and a lot more. Not to mention, The Stacks is an entirely independent podcast, which means there is no way I could make the show without this community. So if you like what you hear and you want to hear more of it, head to patreon.com/thestacks to join. Here are some of our newest members. Thank you all so much. Lisa, Karen Jaffe, Abby Schaefer, Laura Catherine Stevens, Meg, Sidra, Cassandra Opiella, Rebecca Fee, Christy Wilson, and Stephanie Meehan. Thank you all so much, and thank you to the entire Stacks Pack. I couldn't do it without you. All right, now it's time for my chat with the Danny Pellegrino. All right, everybody, I'm so excited today. We're going to do a books meets pop culture moment. We have Danny Pellegrino, who is author, podcast host, and many things, pop culture genius, savant, perhaps. Danny, welcome to The Stacks.
Tracy, I'm so excited to chat with you. I know your show. I listen to your show. I was just before this listening to your Kendra James interview, and I'm so excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you. We're going to start by talking about your book, How Do I Unremember This? So in about 30 seconds or so, will you just let people know what the book is about?
Yeah. How Do I Unremember This is a collection of short stories that will hopefully make you laugh. They're loaded with nostalgia, pop culture references, their family stories, bad dates, all the awkward moments that you wish you could unremember. That I don't care if you're laughing with me or at me, as long as you're laughing while you're reading the book. And then there's a couple other chapters, too, that are a little bit more serious. But for the most part, I want the book to feel like a warm hug and something you could read at the pool or the beach or just to get away for a couple hours.
I read this book while I was in Palm Springs this weekend, and I was definitely laughing. I listened to some of the audiobook, which I personally love because it's your voice and it's you. And so it felt like extra Danny. I'm always curious. I always ask people who have like public personas, which I think that you do. How do you know how much to share? How do you decide like what is okay and what, and like, do you reach out to people and be like, hey, I'm going to tell that story where that embarrassing thing happened?
You know, for the book, I tried to change everyone's names and those sorts of details as to not offend anyone. But I tried to always just keep it focused on myself. So even my boyfriend is sort of a large presence in the book, but I don't name him. And I tried to keep whatever stories, if I was talking about something that happened between us, I tried to keep it focused on my feelings and what happened with me in the scenario. And so I tried to be as respectful as possible. But ultimately, I decided I couldn't reach out to people beforehand because I thought it would censor me too much. And I wanted it to be open and honest. So I sort of felt like I just had to trust my gut that I wouldn't write anything that anyone would be offended by. Right. The person I was most worried about was my mother, because my mom could be very buttoned up. And so she was someone that I couldn't change the name in the book. Right. You know, it was my parents. So they were they had to be in there. And so I was worried about her, but ultimately she liked it. And I think, I just trusted my gut in that. And I think there were a couple of moments where I would take out a line or something if I felt like it would be something someone would read and be offended by. But on my podcast, I noticed the more sort of open and vulnerable I got on the show, the more people would reach out to me and relate to my stories. Or when I talk about mental health on my show, I would get messages of people saying they had similar experiences, obviously different, but
Right.
some shared commonalities. So I just tried to be myself, and hopefully no one was offended by it. I haven't heard of anyone offended yet.
Okay, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
There will be someone, I'm sure, who's like,
I'm
oh
sure.
my god, I can't believe da da da. But who cares? I mean, maybe you do, but I don't. I don't know them. They're not my friends. I
Right,
want
right.
to talk. So you mentioned your podcast. I want to talk about this idea of detours. You sort of open the book with, letting the reader know, sometimes on your show, where your show you recap reality TV Bravo shows, but you do these little detours where you'll talk about something from your life, and you bring this up at the start of the book, and they happen throughout the book. And I really like that device as a podcast host and as a reader reading these stories. And I want to know what sort of excited you or spoke to you about this idea of a detour.
Well, it happened organically and accidentally on my show when I was recapping Real Housewives, or one of the shows I talk about, or when I'm interviewing a celebrity guest, I would just sort of go on these tangents. And I noticed when I was touring pre-pandemic, that's what people were coming up to me and asking about, was the story about my mom and her woodpecker, or just a bad date story that I told on the show. So I recognized that was connecting with people, and I liked telling those stories. I used to be a stand-up comedian before the podcast, and so oftentimes those stories within the realm of the podcast, I would look at them as sort of little stand-up bits, or
Mm,
I would almost craft them not as specifically as I would of a stand-up set or something like that, but I would sort of map out in my head, oh, I want to tell that story before I would get on the microphone, and then I would try to find a spot that fit organically to tell those stories. And so when it came to the book, I knew originally the book was sold as under the title of Detours, because I
oh.
thought people who listen to my podcast would know that. And then ultimately the publisher told me that they tested it and it reminded people too much of construction. So they said, we can't name
Mm,
it that. And so that was frustrating, a frustrating conversation to have. But I like that device. And I also like, in the writing process, it was fun for me to just be able to take these little tangents throughout a story. So each chapter will be about one specific story, but then within that, I can talk about Home Alone 2, or I could
mhm.
talk about my sexual awakenings for a couple pages. And so
Right.
it was really just fun for me to write in that way. And at the end of the process, I was really looking at all of those and seeing where I should scale back, or if there were certain ones I took out, or I moved around. And so it was fun. And also it was a creative challenge too, to find out where they fit naturally. And I didn't want them to take too much away from the larger narrative I was trying to tell within each chapter. And so I loved it. And also, it kind of goes back. I tend to speak in pop culture. I love
Yeah.
movies, TV, toys, all that stuff. And it was fun to be able to get into all of those 90s references, the nostalgia. And I was worried at a certain point, like, are there too many pop culture references? And ultimately, I decided that I should just lean into that, and hopefully other people will relate and enjoy and
Yeah.
understand the references.
I love the pop culture references. I'm going to take a detour really quick. I once had to do stand up comedy for a class in college. I went to NYU, and it was like a summer school class. And it was only like five of us. And when I tell you that it was the most terrifying thing I've ever done, I made myself sick. I had diarrhea because I was
Sure.
so stressed out and so nervous. And I killed, obviously, but I will never.
It's too much.
It is the kind of like, now whenever I see stand-up comedians, I'm like, whatever kind of like metal balls you have, like, it's insane. Like,
It's very challenging. And I didn't love, I also studied a lot of sketch and improv. So I studied at Second City in
mm,
Chicago and here at the Groundlings. And I always loved the performance aspect of being on stage with a group of people and that
yeah,
shared experience. And so when I was doing stand up, it was too stressful. Like, even when I would have a really good show, there was too much of this. And I'm someone who already suffers from anxiety. And so it
yeah,
was like, I would get so hyped up, the nervous diarrhea,
yeah.
all of that stuff. It's like, sorry to be gross, but it's true. You get, your body and everything goes through something. And since the podcast started taking off, and I just got off a book tour where I was doing sort of this mix of stand up, my podcast, and these shows that
Mm,
were a little bit authory, but then also sort of stand up y too, a little bit. it's too much for me. Like I can do it in little spurts. And so
Yeah.
I like 6 or 7 cities or something. And it was all in 2 weeks, which
Oh
was
my gosh.
exhausting. But I'm not someone, I could never do like the yearly, where I know people who are on the road all the time and it's too much anxiety, too much hormones,
Yeah.
all of that.
It's like a roller coaster every time. I still, that was like 15 years ago, and I still get like my heart rate is up right now just thinking about it. It was so scary.
Oh my God.
Uh
But you said you killed. You said you killed.
I killed.
Do you remember like
Yes.
one joke from it?
So, well, I don't remember the exact thing, but I'm Black and Jewish. So I had this whole bit about how, like, God, I can't remember what it was. It was something like, I'm always late, but I bring bagels or something. I don't know. I can't remember. It was good. You don't have to fake laugh, but I can't remember.
No, I'm not fake laughing. I love stand-up stories
Oh my God.
and you sort of do have to fit yourself into like a box, like
Yeah.
that's how they teach you to do stand-up. It's
It
like
was
you're
so
you're
horrible.
you're a persona.
Yeah. And I think it was at Stand Up New York, like the place with the neon sign. Like it was like a cool place. I have like this great picture of me like sitting on a stool, like holding a mic, being like, psh. But you can see like the sweat stains in my pink shirt because I'm so nervous. Anyways, okay, let's get off the
It's
worst day of my
exhausting.
life.
It's hard. It's hard. And when I was doing the book tour, it's like there's some sort of comfort level just because there's a chair I could sit down on, and I would
Mm,
have my computer hooked up to the TV. So it was like I have that crutch, but I don't know that I would be able to. It would be really challenging to just go back out on stage with just a microphone
ugh.
and nothing else.
Yeah. Oh man, that was the worst. Okay, you mentioned your pop culture brain. I know people like you who remember every little pop culture moment reference thing. Like I heard you on Keep It. I know Louis Vuittel is like that too, where it's just like every little thing. I'm like, you guys are. It's crazy. It's like a savant moment. But how do you feel like you're able to stay relevant in a space that's now like so saturated with so many people who are like constantly talking about pop culture, and it's like so easy to access everything?
Yeah, I think it's all about authenticity. So I don't try to talk about shows I don't like or
Hmm.
movies or anything like that I'm not into. And I do love pop culture and I do watch a lot of TV and see a lot of movies and stuff, but I just try to follow what I like and whether that's something nostalgic, like I was just tweeting about 90s McDonald's toys because it's like that's what I'm into. And so I don't try to force it. I think that's the most important thing is just follow what you like. And then I think with the podcast, I learned that what I like, hopefully other people will also like, and that'll be how we have our shared communication. But I don't try to just, oh, everyone's talking about this thing. I'm going to talk about this thing. If
Yeah.
it's natural, then I do it. And if not, I ignore it. I mean, there's certain shows that even in the history of my podcast, I've tried to maybe dip into, and it's like I wasn't really into it, or even within the realm of Housewives, because I cover a lot of Bravo on my show, and there have been times I won't recap a season of a show, and because I'm not feeling it, and I don't
Mm.
want to ever get on the microphone or on my social media or something and talk about something I'm hating, and I'd much rather celebrate and talk about the things that I love, and so I just follow that.
Do you ever get in a situation where you start out talking about something that you think you're gonna love, and then you get to like the middle or the end and you're like, fuck, I actually hate this? And like, how do you approach that conversation?
Yeah, there have been times on my podcast, this season in particular of The Real Houses of Orange County, I'm not liking it at all. And I took
Mm.
off last season covering it. And so I tend to just, people will listen and they'll be like, oh, you're starting to trail off on your Orange County recaps. And I'm like, well, I'm not into it.
Yeah. So you
So
don't ever
people can tell.
go like negative on things. You try to just like stop.
I try to stop. Of course, there's times I will go negative, or I'll just tell people like I'm bored or I'm not
Mm.
enjoying this. But I do try my best. And again, that's not a concrete thing. Of there's certainly times, but where I can skew negative or something. But for the most part, I try as best I can to just keep it as a celebration of things I love. That doesn't mean I won't be critical of something if I'm recapping or whatever. But I just try to keep it what I like.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I don't want to be. Then I get in a negative headspace. I feel like
Right.
it's not even about the audience. It's just like I don't want to be sitting here hating something.
Yeah. No, I totally get that. I'm a big Bachelor franchise fan, and there's a few podcasts that I've like been able to guest host on, and you have to take all the notes and the whole thing. But sometimes like the episodes are really horrible, and like there's like crazy shit where you're like, okay, now I have to talk about this and this sucks. Like I don't want to talk about this. So I totally get that. And that's happened on this
Yeah.
show too, where like I have to talk like we do for book club. We pick a book and then I end up hating it. And then I'm like, oh, well, I can't lie. People will know I did not like this book.
Yeah.
Um,
And people can see through the bullshit. And I
oh yeah.
think I always notice when I'm really loving something, if I'm really into a topic, those are the episodes of mine that tend to do the best. The
Yeah.
ones where I'm just sort of blah about something. No one, people, some people might listen, but I think people can tell. And so it's always more successful, I think, when you're at least really into it. You don't always have to really love it, but you have to be
Yeah.
really like passionate about it.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. I always say that. People always ask like how do I pick guests and authors and I'm always like I just pick whoever I'm the most curious about. Like it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to love them. I just have to be curious about who they are and what they're doing.
Right.
Um
And people ask me all the time about, I have a lot of housewives or celebrity guests on my show. And people ask like how am I choosing who I have on, and it's always just who I want to talk to. Like
yeah.
I'm an independent podcast, so it's not like I have to. I get emails all the time of somebody saying, oh, will you have this person on or that person on, and I always say no if I'm not into it. But then
Yep.
there's other times they don't have to be the biggest star or the biggest whoever. It just has to be someone I'm into, because I know that if I'm not, it's going to be a bad interview. I've done those interviews in the past too, where we're all bored and there's no one's getting anything from it. But if I'm at least interested, then I think it'll make for better listening.
Yeah, that's exactly my thing too. I think I'm also independent. And I think when you're independent, you have that freedom even more. So if like there's no one over your shoulder at all, you can just be like, I don't care about that. I don't want to do it. Um,
It's hard to explain to people, though. The audience, I think, sometimes doesn't understand that, because there are so many podcasts that are run by these big organizations and
yeah.
stuff like that. And for an independent show, you don't have to follow any rules. I don't have to have guests on at all. If there's
Yeah.
times where I go months where I don't have any guests on,
Yeah.
and
But that's
I
so
just
hard.
make
I
the
don't know how
decision.
you do that because I hate talking alone into a microphone. I'm like, "Oh, I don't have a guest. My best friend's in town. I'm like, you need to come talk to me today. Like I can't do it."
Oh
But
my
that's
God.
like such a skill.
I like having the freedom to just record whenever I want. And I
Mm,
could I like being able to record when I have the most energy. So it's like I'll have
mm.
my coffee and then I'll go and record, and I don't have to worry about scheduling with people. And so I like having guests sometimes, but I think for the most part, it's easier for me to just record on my own.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know another thing that you love that you talked about in the book is you love books and bookstores.
I
And
do.
I'm really curious as a person who also loves like pop culture. And I do believe that books, are pop culture. But I'm wondering, do you feel like books get the pop culture credit that they deserve? Or like how can books start getting that like pop culture edit?
No, I've been thinking about this a lot lately, because there are all these book clubs that have,
Mhm.
like Reese Witherspoon, people like you have made books cool and within pop culture. And I think it's important for us to have more people like yourself and whoever are running these book clubs and spotlighting books. Like, we need to spotlight books more. And even within my little realm of the world, I keep thinking I need to do more shows about books, and I need to do what I can to spotlight books, because I do love reading, and just because of the nature of my show, I don't always get to talk about books. Or sometimes I'll have authors on, and sometimes I'll do book club episodes about certain celebrity memoirs or something like that. But yeah, I wish that people read more, and I wish that books were spotlighted more. And even I was thinking, I feel like there aren't a lot of gay book clubs, or gay men who are spotlighting other gay men, because when with my book, when I was taking it out, I would hear back from a lot of these book clubs, whether they be the celebrity book clubs or the smaller book clubs, but it was a lot of spotlighting female authors
Mhm.
and people of color, and all of that stuff is so great. I just was noticing there seemed to me to be a little bit of a void for spotlighting LGBTQ authors, and I think
So you're going to start a book
I
club?
think there are. I don't know. No, I mean, it seems like a daunting task, but I wish there were more. I don't know. There's only a handful of celebrity gay men, people like Andy Cohen or Anderson Cooper or Matt Bomer or whoever.
Yeah.
And it's like I need some of those people to start a book club. I know Andy has a wonderful imprint, but it would be nice to have people like that spotlighting LGBTQ authors.
Yeah. No, you're right. I'm like trying to rack my brain. I'm sure there's someone that I'm not thinking of, but you're totally right
Yeah,
that like
I'm sure there are people, but
yeah, but like not on like the Reese Witherspoon level or whatever. That leads me to my next topic that I want to talk about. So, I mean, you're gay and you're like unabashedly gay, which is I think like
you are outing me, Tracy.
oh
How do you?
fuck.
No,
Oh, spoiler alert. From the
spoiler.
book.
No, no.
But like I think one of the sections I loved was when you were talking about Franck from Father of the Bride, one
I
of my
love me some Frank.
favorite characters and just one of my favorite movies. And you talk a little bit about like how it had never dawned on me, which you say in the book, that he was gay, but that like he's not gay. Like it's never said. He just is like, we assume he's gay because he's a wedding planner and he's flamboyant and he has his like assistant who's maybe his boyfriend or maybe just he likes having a cute younger guy around or whatever. And I'm wondering like how you feel now, many years after that movie's come out, about the representation of gay men in pop culture. Like how has it changed for the better? How has it changed for the worse?
Well, I hate that we're still in an age where things are often coded by the larger studios. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
we're constantly, every time there's a new Marvel movie or Disney animated movie or something, there's like, oh, we're having an exclusive gay moment. And it's like the most coded kind of thing still in 2022. I remember when the Beauty and the Beast live action remake, they made such a big deal in the press about the LeFou
Mm,
having like this sort of like glance at one of the other characters in a dance scene. And it was like, we're still having to be so coded
right.
in
Like
the
crumbs.
larger, yeah, it's Crumbs or Luca was a fantastic animated film that I think most people read as the characters kind of coming of age in a gay sense. And of course, no one is asking for an animated film to show two men, hooking up or having sex or something like that.
Right.
But it still shouldn't have to be that coded. And like you said, we're settling for crumbs. And I was just reading about the new Buzz Lightyear movie where because of all the Disney say gay controversy that's going on, they are reinstating a gay kiss that will probably happen in the background of
Right.
one scene
Right.
for 2 seconds. It's unfortunate that although we're getting lots of great representation on television and in independent film, it's still for mainstream stuff. There are so many superhero movies. There are so many of these larger things that is not a trace of gay people anywhere to be seen. And if there are, it's like that 2 second moment in the background. And so I find that troubling and upsetting and frustrating and it needs to change. And I think people largely the culture is okay with gay people, but we're just not seeing it represented on screen at all. And
Right.
I mean, you mentioned The Bachelor, and I've dipped into the world of The Bachelor, but it's something like that where I don't, my brain doesn't understand that we've had 25 seasons of a show. And even in the pandemic, they were producing the show for what seemed like very cheap because they were all
Yes.
at the La Quinta Inn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I can't understand how come ABC hasn't just done one
Right.
season.
Right.
Out of all those things, just do one and you still can do your other ones. And I don't understand it. And so the representation doesn't make sense to me in a lot of ways.
Do you think that there's, I mean, given, we're talking about this in 2022 when there is so much anti-gay, anti-trans, anti-LGBTQ plus legislation, all of this like really fucking horrible, horrible shit that is gonna fuck up so many kids. And like, it makes me, very upset. And I'm sure it makes you very upset too. I'm wondering, do you feel like the studios, the television channels, the people who claim to, support LGBTQIA rights, all of these things, do you think that they have an obligation to actually turn up the gay, like, do you think that that's what they should be doing in light of this? Or do you think that like they should stay out of it? Or like, what are your feelings about all of this?
Oh, well, it's also upsetting. I mean, like you said,
Yeah. It's
it's
just
disgusting and
devastating.
upsetting.
Yeah.
And
Ugh.
yeah, in terms of like specifically like studios, production companies and stuff like that, I do think there should be more content out there. I think the more people are able to see themselves on screen and see other people on screen, I think it does move the needle so much
Mhm.
because, you know, I kind of always go back to my mom and I remember when I think I was in high school or college when the show called Brothers and Sisters came out with Sally
Yes.
Field.
Oh my
And
gosh.
I remember sitting with my mom, and I grew up in Ohio in a smaller conservative town, and watching those two gay characters on screen, it made my mom related to Nora, who was played by Sally Field, and it kind of opened her eyes to what it would be like to be a mother to gay people. And my mom loves a soap opera too, so it's like when there's gay people represented within the realm of her entertainment, she is able to kind of understand all of it
Mm.
better. And so, yeah, I wish there was just more representation. And like I said, if you're doing 5 or 10 superhero movies a year, there should be gay people in them. Like there
Yeah.
just should be. It's crazy to me that I always talk about holiday movies and the Hallmark Channel. For the longest time, finally, they're starting to give
Yeah.
us some representation. But for the longest time, they were touting, and every season they would be bragging about how they produced 40 new holiday movies a season. 40 of them. There was a point where it was 35, then it was 37, then they're like,
Right.
well, this year we got 40. And there's not one LGBT person, not even a side character in
Right.
40 new movies, not even a speaking role. And I'm not even talking about the lead at this point. I was saying, what about the person at the inn? They can't
Right.
have a
Right.
husband or a boyfriend, or so that's not normal. That's not the world we're all living in. And I'm not someone who's saying take away those, all 40 of those should be all LGBTQ or something like that. I'm just saying that you're producing 40 new movies. Come on.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Or do 41.
Do 41. And they've gotten better, and they've gotten new leadership. And so now the person who used to run that channel went to that new GAC network, which I think is,
Never heard of it.
they're doing like super, it's very conservative. There's no gay people over there,
Got
but
it.
now Hallmark is starting.
It's good. Now Hallmark is finally dipping the toe.
Yeah.
I don't famously, but I don't know if people know this, but I do not like the holidays and I do not watch holiday movies and I do not listen to holiday music until Christmas Eve. I just can't
Wow.
for whatever reason, I just don't, I'm not into it. And I like Christmas. Like I like some, like it's not about, I just don't like all of the, like people are like, oh, it's September the first. And I'm like, what do you mean it's September? Like I'm still
Tracy,
in a
this
tank
is where
top.
our friendship ends because I'm the opposite as you. I
I feel
love
like
it.
everyone loves those things. I cannot get into them. I have friends who are in them and I will like try to watch. And then I'm like, I love you, but it can't happen for me. Um,
Ah, I
um,
love that.
your book also, like, I think one of the things I really like about your book is like how openly, like, and unabashedly gay it is. Like, I feel like that is a thing about you where like you embrace so much of yourself and for the audiences. And I know in publishing sometimes they like ask people to pull back a little bit. And I did not get that sense. So I really liked that about your book.
Oh, thank you. I wanted it to be that. And
Yeah.
I was so lucky and happy that my publisher Source Books was, they didn't give me, I mentioned they had some trouble with the title, but in terms of the content of the book, like they left me alone and let me do what I wanted to do. And it was completely, they didn't tell me to take any of it out. And I know a lot of the people that were going to get the book tend to be women. I just because I know my podcast audience,
Mhm.
uh, I see the breakdowns as mostly women. And I would imagine a lot of straight women who read or who listen to my show or were going to pick up the book. But I didn't want to censor myself because it was so important for me that a gay kid in Ohio could pick up the book and recognize some stuff. So I didn't want to sanitize anything. There's one chapter where a story sort of revolves around a gay porn that's playing. And I wanted to just be unabashedly like, this is a Sean Cody video. And
Yeah.
there are going to be plenty of people reading it who don't know what Sean Cody is. But for the little gay boy in Ohio or the gay man reading it, they're going to know that reference. And so it was like that. It was so important for me to not sanitize any of that stuff, because I remember reading, I just talked about this on that Keep It show, a book called Swish, where it was unabashedly gay. And I read that at a very formative time in my life. And when I was right before I came out of the closet, I was living in Chicago, and I read that book. And yeah, he talked about sex and dating and all of these things. And I think it made me feel like, oh, my life will be okay.
Right.
And I'll be able to be a sexual person, a funny person, someone who loves pop culture and has a great family life. And I think it's important it was so important for me not to sanitize any of the gay stuff. So that doesn't mean I'm always sitting there talking about gay sex, but I wanted to not sanitize.
What do you think childhood Danny would say to you now? How would he feel about this book existing?
He would love it. I mean, it was a dream come true. I've always wanted to do this. I grew up loving like David Sedaris, and like we mentioned, I worked at a bookstore in high school. And so he would just be so excited that my book was in store shelves. I mean, it was so wild to walk into a Barnes and Noble. And I know I worked at a Borders. Borders doesn't exist anymore, but I spent so much time at my Solon, Ohio Borders that it was a dream come true to have a book at a bookstore now. So I think he would be super excited. I think also I interviewed Miss Piggy, and childhood Danny wouldn't have been able to understand that. Like it would have just been mind blowing.
Oh my gosh. I love that so much. Was she great?
She was amazing. Yes.
Okay.
And Rosie O'Donnell too. It was like those probably the two pillars of my childhood, Miss Piggy and Rosie O'Donnell, getting to interview them over Zoom. What more could you ask for?
Nothing. Okay, we'll take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Valentine's Day is upon us, and I've got love on the brain. Love for books, duh, of course. Hello. Did you forget what podcast you're listening to? I love bringing you all great reads, exclusive author interviews, and behind the scenes book gossip. But I can only do that with your support over on Patreon and Substack. Our Stacks Patreon community, also known as the Stacks Pack, is where you can go for book club meetups, a private, very active Discord, and a year-long mega reading challenge to help you achieve all your reading goals. Plus, you also get that monthly bonus episode. Now, over on the Substack, you can subscribe to my newsletter, Unstacked, where I keep the book conversations going. I also give you a healthy dose of sports and pop culture, definitely some hot takes happening over there. And again, that bonus episode. If you don't have a few dollars to spare, don't worry. There are free options on the Substack and the Patreon to get you a little extra Stacks magic. Making this podcast is a total team effort, and by supporting my Patreon and my Substack, you allow me to support my amazing team that makes the show possible every single week. So if you or your friends are looking to meet other book lovers and support this indie podcast, come hang out with me on Patreon, Substack, or both. I would love to have you. And since we're talking about love, you can gift subscriptions to the Patreon and the Substack for that special reader in your life. For the Stacks Pack, head to patreon.com/thestacks. And for the newsletter, head to tracythomas.substack.com. And also, there are links to both in the show notes. Okay, see you in the Stacks. Okay, we're back. There's one more thing I want to talk about that's in your book before we sort of move on to your writing process, which is grief. You talk a lot about grief and the feelings that come with that and sort of the mental health around that. And I want to know why that was important to incorporate into this book, especially because, as you mentioned, you wanted the book to feel like a warm hug and to be sort of a funny vibe. And, you know, the stories that you shared, like some of them are really, you know, they're sad stories. So I'm curious where that came from for you.
I wasn't expecting to write about grief at all. I was going into that chapter writing about this bad date that I had, and I thought it was really kind of silly and funny that I went on this date that was at a fast food restaurant. I thought it was funny. And then when I sat down to write it, it sort of morphed into about grief and losing my grandmother. And at the time of this date, it was like right after my grandma had passed, which I didn't really piece together until I sat down to write the story. And so initially, when I had sold the book, the only sort of deep chapter was going to be a chapter about my mental health struggle. I thought that was going to be sort of the dramatic anchor of the book. And then everything else would just be funny, silly, absurd, that kind of stuff. And ultimately, when it came up, I just decided to lean into it. And I thought it was so fascinating to me how we all handle grief, how we all deal with loss. And it's so fucked up. And we want to act like it's such a clean experience, but it's a much messier experience. And so I was fascinated by grief and how I handled it in my own life and how we culturally handle it. And every religion has their different experience. Where I come from, you have your funeral services for an hour when somebody passes, and then everyone's just expected to move on. And it's not as clean as that. And so I thought that was just really interesting. And so I was fortunate that my publisher was very hands off with the content of the book. So when I wanted to just do a whole chapter about grief, essentially, I hope that there are moments in that chapter that people will smile or laugh, but I went there because I felt like it's a human experience. And I love a heavier book. I love a darker topic. My favorite book as a kid was Bridge to Terabithia, which deals with grief. And I kept going back to that and the idea that kids can handle the heaviness and we can all handle the heaviness. I think it's fascinating to me. Sometimes we try to stay away from something that makes us feel a little uncomfortable, but I think we can all handle it. And if a kid can handle reading Bridge to Terabithia, and in my case, it became my favorite book and something I revisit once or a year or so, then I thought, why not do a chapter about grief? And it became, I think, my favorite chapter in the book.
Yeah, I love that chapter. I think it's really good. And I did laugh also. I mean, the date was pretty horrific.
Yeah. And I tend to like the dark comedy of anything.
Yeah.
I mean, the things that I love in TV or film, I like when there's a dark edge. There's a show called The Comeback. That's my favorite thing ever with Lisa Kudrow. And some people watch it and they're very uncomfortable because it's dark, but I find it so funny and I love the mix of that.
Yeah. No, I people know that I love a dark book, a dark moment. I famously say that I don't like comedy. I do, but I don't. Like, I like when things are dark and I can laugh, but I don't like when someone's like trying to like give me a ha-ha moment. Right. So you mentioned before you're an independent podcaster. I know what that means. It means a lot of fucking work. How did you make time to write the book?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it was during the pandemic, so I think we were all sort of stuck at home. I just dove in and wrote it. And I'm someone who's always kept a journal. I've always been writing. And so I think just I also have a lot of like screenwriting stuff that I had worked on before the book. And so I put that stuff on pause and I went into the book. So I'm very disciplined with work stuff. Like, I'm pretty good at sitting down and especially in the pandemic, I just didn't really have a social life. And so I wrote all the time. And yeah.
How do you like to write? Where are you? How many hours a day? How often? Do you have music? Do you have snacks and beverages? Paint the picture.
I can write anywhere. Like, I could go to a loud coffee shop and write, or I'm fine sitting in quiet in a room. I'm someone who writes every single day. So there's tons of projects I have on my computer or in my office that will never see the light of day. I mean, I have countless screenplays that will just sit on my computer, and I have others that are kind of in different development phases. But I'm someone who I can write as all the time. And I think that's kind of the most important for people if they want to be a writer. You just have to sit down and write. And a lot of it is just going to be stuff that you throw away or you never use again. But you have to know that it's going to be something that will help you grow to the next level of writing. And even with the process of this book, I finished it and I kept writing after the book because I want to do a second collection. And I noticed I'm loving the stuff I'm writing now because I feel like within the first book, I learned what I like and what I don't like and where my strengths are and weaknesses are. And so I think you just have to keep writing and also to find your voice and to find what you do. I mean, I learned that I'm someone who should lean into the pop culture references. That's what I like. And I finished this book and I like that about this book. And some people might not, but I do. And so you learn as you keep writing. But yeah, I write a lot.
What were your weaknesses that you discovered?
I think not trying to when it came to the pop culture references specifically, it's like I not trying to shoehorn stuff that's not me or that I don't like. It doesn't work for me to put in a sports reference or something if it's not natural to me. Also, I think some of the stories that I like, there are certain stories in the book that I would expand on, and there are certain things that I would maybe make shorter. Mm-hmm. And I learned that throughout the process of there were certain chapters that before the final edit, they were much longer or much shorter. And I also love in this book, there are certain chapters that are quick, a couple pages, and I like that. And so I think that's something that I would lean into for the next one, of it's okay to have a shorter chapter and kind of mix and match a little bit.
Yeah.
Did that make sense?
Yeah. I like when chapters are different lengths. I personally, I love essay collections, and I like when they're not all uniformly like the same number of words or whatever. But, and this is important now, Danny, you did sort of avoid the part about snacks and beverages. Do you have them when you're writing? If so, what are they? We need details about what you're eating and drinking.
I mean, I'm a snack person. So but I'd say I tend to lean more towards sweets. So I'm a chocolate lover. Okay. I think that's what I'm mostly snacking on, is like the peanut butter cups. I'm recently addicted to Justin's peanut butter cups.
Oh, like the healthy ones?
Is it Justin's?
Yeah,
they're Justin's. Like the healthy.
Yeah.
But they're not really healthy. And that's only because I really believe, Tracy, that they have changed the recipe on Reese's peanut butter cups, because I don't find them. The chocolate is always chalky to me now. And I love a Hershey's chocolate, but the Reese's always tastes chalky to me.
Do you ever do the seasonal shaped ones? Because those ones are my favorite.
Those are
the ratio.
Always more fresh. And I just want to tell people a trick. You should always buy the seasonal candy, no matter what it is, because it's always going to be way more fresh than the other stuff that's sitting on the shelves.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I'd say peanut butter cups are kind of my guilty pleasure. And also it gives me a little boost when I need some sugar.
Thank you for sharing a snack that I actually like, because people here know. Sometimes people try to tell me their favorite snack is a clementine, and I'm like, I am embarrassed for you. Or like, I don't snack, or I just like to munch on like nuts. I'm like, oh, really? Cool. Do you have any friends?
Like 3 almonds.
Yeah.
I know. You know what I'm also obsessed with, since we're talking snacks, is Cheez-Its has a new grooves. They're called Cheez-Its Grooves.
Oh, okay.
They're so good. They're like a little bit thicker than the normal Cheez-Its, and they're flavored. So there's like a white cheddar one that is fantastic. There's a ranch one.
Okay.
And yeah, they have like little grooves, but they're Cheez-Its Grooves, and I'm like obsessed with them right now.
Okay, I need to immediately goes to Target to buy these.
The ranch ones are the best, but Target doesn't always carry the ranch ones.
Okay,
it's
good to know. Where do you get them? You're in LA, right?
Yeah, I mean, the Ralph's down the street from us has the ranch ones.
Okay.
But I don't know if they just sell out or what it is, but the ranch ones are the best ones. So if you could find the ranch grooves.
Okay. I cannot wait to send you a bunch of DMs of me like covered in snacks.
Please.
Okay. What's a word you can never spell correctly on the first try?
Accommodate. There's a joke in the book where it's like I had to look up how to spell accommodate, but I knew how to spell Philippi, like as in Ryan Philippi, because I've searched for Ryan Philippi on my Google image a million times since I was in 7th grade. But the word accommodate is hard. Also, when I was reading the audiobook, I realized there's a lot of words I say weird or mispronounce, like en route. I always would say en route. And there's like a director.
I thought it was interchangeable. I didn't know.
The director told me we had to keep going over it because I said en route, and he's like, no, you can't say it like that. It's en route. And there were a couple like that. I can't remember others, but that was one.
I hear that a lot from people. They're like, oh, I didn't realize I couldn't pronounce any words because they read their audiobooks. So authors who don't read the audiobooks, they still think that they're geniuses. But authors who do read the audiobooks, they know they can't say anything right.
Yeah. The audiobook process was also very helpful because there were 3 typos in the book that I found. The book had been off to print, and I went and recorded the audiobook right before the holidays. And as I was recording, I noticed 3 little mistakes. And I'm sure there may be others in the final draft, but I noticed 3 of them reading the audiobook. And I frantically called the editor, and I was like, we have to change these before it goes to print, because there was one mistake on page 2. And I was like, it will drive me nuts. Like and luckily we were able to fix them. But so I think it's important to read the audiobook because you'll catch things.
Well, so they oftentimes have authors read the audiobooks like right before the book comes out. And I think that they should do it earlier because I've heard so many authors say that they would have edited or changed sections after they like read it out loud for the audiobook because they realized they like didn't actually like how it flowed. And I thought that was really
Yeah.
interesting. And then they just know that there's a part of their book that they just hate for the rest of their lives.
Yeah. I have a friend who's doing a book right now, and I was like, you absolutely have to record the audiobook as soon as possible. And I said, make sure that they don't send it to print until after you're done recording, because you will catch things.
So the book's been out for like a month now. Well, when people are listening, it will be a month. Who's the coolest person who's expressed interest in your book?
Oh my God. I mean, I did this whole press tour thing, and I got to go on The View and the Drew Barrymore show. And so it was exciting. Drew Barrymore sort of talking to me about the book, and she hadn't finished it, but she had read some of it, and that was like a thrill to me. And yeah, there are certain comedians I love that Casey Wilson was super helpful throughout the process, and she even provided a blurb for me. So like she was one of the first people to read it, and I just think she's the funniest, smartest person. And so I couldn't believe that she read the book and then also gave me this beautiful blurb that's on the book. So yeah, I'm trying to think of who else. There have been certain people I've gotten DMs from, and we're trying to adapt it as a TV show or movie. And so I've taken some meetings, and so there are, people that I've been hearing from, and it's just wild to me. I mean, because you write it, and I don't know, just the fact that anyone's reading it, or anytime on social media when somebody tags me with like specific thoughts about the book, I'm like, oh, you actually read it.
Okay, wait, if they adapt it into a thing, who do you want to play you?
Oh my God. Well, me is who I want to play me, which is probably a gross answer
no,
to
it's
say,
great.
but that's the goal. But I keep sort of fantasy casting my parents in the book, or in what it would be, and thinking about who would play my mom or my dad. And I think I would love like Bonnie Hunt to play my mom, because it's very Midwestern kind of vibe. So that's who I've been thinking about for Linda Pellegrino.
Okay. Love that. Love that. For people who like this book, what else would you recommend to them to read?
Oh, I mentioned Casey Wilson. I think her book, A Wreckage of My Presence, was fantastic. I love Phoebe Robinson's writing. Her and I grew up in the same town in Ohio, and I think her books are brilliant. I love this book called Swish, which I think I mentioned was super important to me when I was in college. It's by a guy named Joel Durfner. And so those are the three that sort of pop out that I think if you like this, you would like that.
I like that. I saw Casey Wilson and Phoebe Robinson in conversation in LA. It was like one of the first things I did since the pandemic, book things I did since the pandemic. But I know Casey, I used to teach at Flywheel, and Casey used to take my class all the time. She's absolutely lovely person.
She's so funny too. She just
so funny.
Cracks me up.
Yeah, she's so great. Okay, I have just two more questions. One is, what do you hope folks will keep in mind as they read your book?
I hope they keep in mind that I just want them to escape for a couple hours. I think everything, we're at this fever pitch right now. I think we all need to let the air out of our tires a little bit. And so I really just want it to feel like a warm hug. And I keep saying that, and I feel like it sounds cheesy, but yeah, I ultimately just want people to escape. And I think we have all of these huge fights that we need to fight. I think there's so much going on culturally with the world, the government, everything. And I want everyone to fight those fights. I think we need to fight. I was just listening to an interview about climate change, and there are so many things, obviously. But I think it's important for us all to have our escapes, our outlets to recharge, replenish the batteries, all that kind of stuff. So that's ultimately what I want. I want it to be something that people can check out for 2 hours so that they can go on and fight all those fights and have the energy to do that. I think that's where I realized I'm best at, which maybe sounds gross to say, but yeah, I think that's my purpose in life, is to give people a little bit of escape so that they can go fight those fights and fix all the problems that we all have.
Yeah, I love that. Okay, here's my last question for you. If you could have anyone dead or alive read this book, who would you want it to be?
Oh my God, that's such a good question. I think I would love to know what Lucille Ball would think of the book. I don't know. That's just the first person that came to mind.
I like that. I think someone else said Lucille Ball once. I can't remember who it was, but I was really shocked with the answer also. And they were like, I'm a huge Lucille Ball fan.
I do. I love Lucy. I mean,
do
who doesn't love
wait,
Lucy?
I know who it was. It was Rachel Lindsay.
Oh my God. And maybe I wonder if subconsciously, because I listened to that interview, I wonder if that's subconsciously.
She mentioned your book
Rachel
as a book that was in conversation with her book.
She's the best. She also provided a blurb for my book. I love Rachel.
I love Rachel.
Maybe I wonder if subconsciously, maybe that I feel like maybe that came. But I'm trying to think now. I feel like I need to give somebody else too. But
no, it's great. We love a repeat. You're in the Lucille Ball's now in the Two Timers book club that we've created.
I'm a big Golden Girls fan too,
okay.
and I've always loved B. Arthur, and I think I love her activism and what she stood for with the LGBTQ community, and so I would love her to read it too.
Okay, that's a unique. No one said B. Arthur,
and also maybe like some sort of. I think like my gay forefathers, let's just say, like, I would love to know what I would love the gay forefathers to know and see that, like, oh, people are there's a gay author coming out with a book referencing Sean Cody.
Yeah. They would be so proud. Danny, this was so great. Everyone go out and get Danny's book. It's called How Do I Unremember This? And listen to Danny's incredible podcast, Everything Iconic with Danny Pellegrino. Danny, thank you so much for being here.
Tracy, it was my pleasure. I'm so excited to be here. And again, I love you. I love your show. And so I just thank you for spreading the word about books too, because I think it's so important. And you mentioned getting the book, and I just want to take a minute I know everyone's having trouble with money and all sorts of stuff. So go to your local library and get it. If you ask your library to hold it, or support your independent bookstore. I think it's super important. If you don't want to buy it from one of the big retailers, go to indiebound.org and it'll connect you with your local bookstore. Okay.
Yeah. And there will be links in the show notes for everyone to get all the books we talked about, including Danny's book, and to find his podcast and everything. And it will be linked to independent bookstores. Don't you worry. Thank you so much, Danny, and everyone else. We will see you in the stacks. All right, that does it for us today. Thank you all so much for listening, and thank you to Danny for being my guest. I'd also like to give a huge thank you to Caroline Broke for coordinating this interview. Remember, the Stacks Book Club pick for April is Doppelgangbanger by Courtney Lamar Charleston, which we will be discussing on Wednesday, April 27th with Nate Marshall. If you love the show and want inside access to it, head to patreon.com/thestacks to join the Stacks Pack. Make sure you're subscribed to the show wherever you listen to your podcasts. And if you're listening through Apple Podcasts or Spotify, be sure to leave us a rating and a review. For more from The Stacks, follow us on social media at The Stacks Pod on Instagram, at The Stacks Pod _ on Twitter, and check out our website, thestackspodcast.com. Our editor is Christian Duenas. Our assistant is Lauren Tyree, and our graphic designer is Robin McCray. The Stacks theme music comes from Tegirigis, and The Stacks is created and produced by me, Tracy.